Don, you know, we talked a little bit out on the bench about this product, and the customers had a chance to see. They're going to see just how easy it is to set this system up.
Now, is this where the Freedom 458 came out?
Correct, and if you'll notice, it fit right back into the hole. Now we're going to do some pretty tricked out stuff at this location. We've made a few changes before they had generic steps in. This coach is going to require a little more of a build than what we would normally do. Every piece of wood in this RV is going to be custom built. We're going to have a very nice set of oak steps that are going to set over the top of this.
Nice.
But at the same time, if you'll notice our area back behind, we're still leaving plenty of room to be able to get adequate air flowing across this thing to make sure we don't ever incur any problems. We've also made sure in our build that any questions that we had as far as wire size, gauging, and making sure that we have the power supplied that we needed, we have went to code on all of our wire sizes, or we have actually went to a larger wire.
Right. Well, that's great. You know, I'm looking at this. You know, you've got a good 3 inches behind here, which is going to be plenty of air venting it back out to the living
We're
quarters.
going to have 2 vents, one on either side of the steps, to make sure that we get a good flow going across this inverter.
Right. Now we're feeding with what do we have here? 8-3. My gosh, didn't even look. Yeah, so we've got 8-3 wire going in. So we're going to go ahead and use the dual in and dual out.
Correct. And if you'll notice, when I talked about wire size a minute ago, this has 30 amps going in and 30 amps coming out per leg. But you just said 8 wire. 8 wire will actually hold up to 40 amps.
Right.
We've made sure, being that it is an RV installation and that we're dealing with ambient temperatures that are a little bit different than what we normally deal with in a residential, we went ahead and stepped 1 gauge heavier on our wire size.
Okay, excellent. Well, the lugs will certainly take it. So
absolutely, absolutely.
We've got the looped wiring, so the input is directly feeding the output. So now that we know we're powered down, we're going to go ahead and cut
Remember,
the
William,
loop.
you've got as much as 10 inches that you can come out with your loop if you need to.
I know.
So cut long and
And so when you install, you always want to make sure that black is hot 1, red is hot 2, and then your white is your neutral.
You open up the transfer switch, open
conversation.
up the surge guard, line 1 is red, line 2
You're
is
kidding.
black.
nope. We can hook the same cables up. Now on this particular one, we elected to run new wire, heavier wire, because we're needing more power. That's why we went to the 3012 unit. We needed that extra power that this inverter was capable of giving us.
So the second neutral is there in case you're going to 2 separate 120 volt panels. You can use that extra neutral, but since we're going to a single split phase panel, you can just use the 1 neutral and be fine.
Okay. Stuff works like concrete.
We gotta clean them off.
By the end of next week, the same.
We've got our line 2, since we're using line red for line 1 in this installation. So we got line 2, line 1, and our neutral. Like we mentioned before, we don't need that second neutral because we're going to single panel. Our input wires, line 2, line 1, and then neutral. And then this will allow it to transfer through when we've got power on the input. It'll transfer it to the output. It uses line 1 for the charger, so you need to keep that in mind for your balance of power on both legs. And then of course it transfers through, and then when it's on invert, just the output is live.
You know, for ease of install, we've done a lot of our pre-wiring ahead, which is a smart thing to do anyway, because how you originally planned the project out and how it's going to finally lay is two completely different things.
Right.
During the install or the pre-install, we noticed that to make this a more user-friendly and aesthetically appealing, we had to build a few extra little components to give it that extra little pizzazz that we were looking for.
One of the things I also wanted to cover is make sure or take notice that everything here is color coded. So when you go black to black, red to red, also our battery temperature sensor has a blue cable on it, so it'll go into the blue port. And then if you're using the simple remote, which we opted not to do in this installation, its cable is black, and so it'll go into the black remote port. So on the front panel, we've got our stacking port, which we're not going to use in this installation, but that's if you wanted to stack multiple inverters together to increase your output current, or if you wanted to go with a 240 volt system. And then we've got our ZAN bus ports, and there's two of them. Every device has two ZAN bus ports, so you can daisy chain the installation. So all you do is you plug in a network cable into one of them, and if you've got other devices, you can attach them to the other port. If you have an open device, you take a terminator plug, which comes with each device, and plug it in, and that defines the end of the network. And so that's all you need to do on the front face. And then we'll get to the DC connections. You always want to connect the positive cable last and disconnect it first when you're pulling an installation out, because there are an awful lot of surfaces here that are tied to the ground of the coach. You've got a ground plane here. You've got a ground plane on the case. The negative wire is a ground plane. So it's easier to make to have accidents happen when you're dealing with the positive cable. So let the positive cable be exposed at one point. Connect it. The connection's done, tighten it down, and you're not going to worry about something else bumping into it while you're doing the rest of the installation. You also don't have to worry about other smaller wires carrying current if somebody were to accidentally turn it on. The spark is normal as it charges
But you're not ready for
internal capacitors. Happens every single time, and with every inverter. All right, now that the DC cables are on, that makes it nice and safe. You can finish your installation by plugging in all the other accessories, and well, the inverter's good to go. How hard was that? All right, so Jim, one of the things I noticed about this, the automatic gen start normally gets deck mounted somewhere behind a cabinet, but you've got it kind of poking through this panel. Tell me about that.
That's a good point, Don. You know, when we decided to do this build, there was a lot of reasons why we chose to put this in a stainless panel. When we did, we thought we don't want to cover up some really nice components, so we elected to build a fancy little plate here to mount all of them into. These are nice looking components. Let the customer be able to see what they have. At the same point, we wanted to be able to protect those components. Now they're concealed in a nice stainless steel cover to where anybody can't just get into it and start messing with the parameters. At the same time, we're going to have a nice fancy glass here to where we're going to be able to still monitor everything that's going on with the components at any given time.